All right, everybody, welcome back to From the Other Sideline. I am joined here with my good friend, one of my favorite college football writers, one of the main contributors, the editor, the man that moves the needle behind one of the best football blogs on these here interwebs, Levi Stevenson of Wide Right Natty Lite. Levi, we're in very different places today as we record this on the Sunday after the second to last weekend of regular season college football. But it's going to be TCU and Iowa State to end the season, just like it was in 2014, the last time TCU was on the precipice of a college football playoff berth. The difference is this time the Horned Frogs will not only have to get past Iowa State, they'll have to get past probably Kansas State, maybe Texas, the Big 12 championship. And then there's still going to be people that don't think they believe to be in the playoffs. But I don't think anybody around TCU is taking Iowa State too lightly. It's probably statistically the best defense in the Big 12, and a team that makes things really, really suck for teams that like to play offense.
We only play, we are the official college football team of the Sickos Committee. You cannot watch an Iowa State football game unless you really hate yourself. There's because our defense is so good that whatever the offense is doing, the other offense is doing or has done the whole season, doesn't matter. They're going to score somewhere between 10 and 20 points. That's it. You're just going to get 17 points and you're going to like it. And that's just what's going to happen. But the offense is an affront to humanity. It's an affront to human decency. And that is the problem here. And not only is that, but our special teams is somehow worse. So that's the problem here, is that all games that Iowa State plays are icky. They are poopy football games. And that's the only thing we play. And we drag everybody else. We don't get up for other teams and oh, it's just fun. We're going to have fun. We're going to lose, but we're going to have fun. Nope. We're going to lose and it's going to suck the whole time. And you're going to hate it too.
that we were joking a little bit among the TCU people of what would TCU's bazooka field goal play have looked like if it was run by Iowa State yesterday instead, because of how atrocious.
Oh God. Okay. So
teams.
I was watching that in awe because our special teams would never pull that off. Never in a million years would they pull that off. Honestly, it probably would have been hooked and it would have missed by 10 yards to the left. It would have been low and it would have just hooked 10 yards. It'd have been nonsense. Otherwise, either that or they would have false started and it wouldn't even matter. Yeah. So it's
I saw one such field
answer.
Goal. Yeah,
they would have false started and they would have had they would have lost one, the automatic runoff. Guarantee it.
Yep. Well, TCU also barely got away with or got a 12th man off the field at the very last second before on Baylor's punt, the previous possession, and that probably also would not have worked out in Iowa State's favor.
No.
Yeah,
very bad at that stuff.
So I think the statistic I heard was that Iowa State's only given up more than 20 points 3 times this season. Is that correct?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. And 3 times.
Baylor's gotten the closest to hitting their season average, which was they were like 4 or 5 points short of their season scoring average. Most teams have been in the range of 1 to 3 touchdowns below their season scoring average.
We know that Iowa State's had a good defense, but what is it this year? It just seems to be especially dominant. What is it about this unit that's been so effective?
Oh, the biggest difference is that the weakest part of the Iowa State's defense has always been the secondary. It's been a sneaky. It's really the corners, actually, especially is what it's been. Anthony Johnson's always been lights out, but the second one has always been a problem. And that can leave some weaknesses where you have to commit an extra safety here to help out and stuff like that. Well, Iowa State has 2 really good corners. TJ Tampa is the most unsung player in the entire conference. He's an unbelievably good corner. I would expect. Now they play. I mean, it's a lot of zones, so they don't switch sides to cover up anything. But whenever Quentin Johnson is lined up on TJ Tampa, that's a matchup you're going to want to watch. That's going to be an exceptionally good matchup. TJ Tampa is an unbelievably good athlete, and he's very smart. And his running partner Miles Purchase on the other side is very good too. They're both I think, and actually what's interesting is they're both actually almost better run defenders than they are coverage. Last I saw TJ Tampa was around an 80 or an 82 coverage rating on PFF, and he was a 93 run defender. Just yesterday I saw him. They ran a bubble screen out to the side, and they ran the bubble screen over to TJ Tampa's side, and they ran. And there was 2 receivers over there, and they ran bubble. So they had the X receiver on the outside, or the outside receiver there was the blocker. He blocked TJ. TJ pushed him back and grabbed the ball carrier with his other arm and tackled them both at the same time. He's a corner or whatever, and the guy's a monster. He's got it. Quentin Johnson will have his work cut out for him to be really effective and stuff like
Well,
that. So
Quentin Johnson's very likely not going to play as he sprained his other ankle on
no
Saturday.
kidding.
So we
Oh,
think,
I
yeah.
didn't know
So
that.
yeah,
Okay.
he went out on the Max Duggan interception in the third quarter. He left the game, did not return. He's missed time. He missed most of the game against Texas Tech. He played against Texas, was not 100%. I don't know what the plan is for him this weekend. Darius Davis missed Saturday's game. They think he will be back for the Big 12 championship. I think he's probably not going to play Saturday. So there's certainly going to be opportunities for Iowa State defensively. Kendra Miller, they think will be back. He missed the fourth quarter yesterday as well with an undisclosed injury. So TCU is finally starting to kind of feel the effects of now having played 8 straight conference games.
Yeah, the injuries are piling up. Yeah.
Yeah, that starts to happen. And we haven't had a bye week since week 3, so these things happen.
That sucks.
The thing it's terrible. The thing that is really amazing to me about the Iowa State defense, though, is that normally, like, we've seen really good defenses, be effective and have bad offenses and kind of carry teams. But the Iowa State offense is so bad that the defense is constantly in a bad position and yet are still managing to hold teams so below their season averages. And really, I mean, they are shuttering really good offenses up and down the conference.
Texas Tech isn't a world beater on offense, but they were averaging 34 points a game on the season. They got to 14 or whatever. Like, I mean, they struggled to get to 14. They had to do 2. It was like the only points they got was on 2 long drives. They had to really drive down the field, and nickel and dime their way down there, which is kind of what the Iowa State defense is designed to force you to do, is to be patient, and nickel and dime, and don't force it or anything like that. And that was the one tricky part. So what's hard is because the joke is that, like, to beat Iowa State, Matt Campbell, to beat Iowa, Matt Campbell had to become Iowa or whatever. So, like, it's interesting because Iowa and Iowa State both have extremely comparable teams this year. The defenses are like 2 and 3 in the country. Like, they're like 2 of the top 5 defenses in college football, but the offenses are both atrocious. Now, fortunately for Iowa, they get to play in the Big Ten West, which is unmitigated garbage. But one thing that their defense does do really well, that their defense actually scores points. Like, they generated like a ton of pick sixes and shit like that. Like, I remember seeing a stat that, like, since 2011 or something like that, like, Iowa is like, they're first in the nation in interceptions, and it's like not close. Iowa generates a ton of turnovers. Iowa State is really good. They shut down opponents pretty quick. They don't let people score in the red zone, anything like that. They're not like super turnover hungry defense. They really just make it extraordinarily difficult for you to do your job or whatever. And that's kind of the main difference. So the defense, it doesn't score a lot of points. Like if this was like Iowa's defense, where you might almost expect the defense to give you a touchdown or 2 every game or something like that. Like, that's not how Iowa State's defense works or whatever. And that's fine. They're exceptionally good, whatever. They shouldn't be expected to score to buoy the offense. Like, that's
what's so interesting is you have a top 5 defense, but you have a team that's sitting at 4 wins with 1 game remaining in the season, and
what sucks though is that, like, almost all of those losses have been one score, like 1 point, 1 to 6 points, all of them or whatever. And like, so like a lot of games, they were literally like 1 play from when, like, if they made the field goal against Kansas, they win. If Xavier Hutchinson catches that ball against Texas, they win. If Jalen Noel catches the ball against Oklahoma State, they win or whatever. Like, they are truly, like, they've truly been like 1 or 2 plays away. But this defense is so good, they should never be close. Like, Iowa State should have been blowing teams out most of this year. Like, if the offense, I remember seeing Bill Connolly from ESPN, used to be SB Nation, now he's with ESPN, big analytics guy, whatever. Max Olson asked him is if you took this year's Iowa State defense and special teams, which special teams is hot garbage, horrible or whatever, but if you just left the special teams and the defense and you took the 2021 offense, which was like fine, but they weren't amazing, they would be like, they would be Bill Connolly's like 5th or 6th ranked team in the country. Jeez. Or whatever. Like, they would be absurdly good if the offense was fine. Now, it goes back to, we probably actually somehow underrated Breece Hall and Brock Purdy and Charlie Kohler. We probably actually underrated how good they were. And I know I did or whatever. I mean, like, we knew that losing Breece Hall was going to hurt because there wasn't an obvious guy behind him that was like, okay, this guy is going to step up and he's going to be another all-time good running back. one, it's hard to crank out 3 all-time good running backs
Yes.
right in a row. Two is more than most people get. And now 3 was trying to push, probably pushing your luck a little bit. But we underestimated the value of Breece Hall making that offensive line look really good. And honestly, they still didn't look good with him, but they didn't look completely incompetent like they do now.
Let's talk a little bit about that incompetence. Yeah. What happened? Like, why? Like, you've got a quarterback who's very highly touted. You've got Xavier Hutchinson, who I think people thought was ready to step into a bigger role. There's talent on this offense. Why isn't it working?
Well, it's definitely not Xavier Hutchinson's fault. He 2 weekends ago against Oklahoma State, he became Iowa State's all-time receptions leader in 3 seasons. In 3 and 2 and change, compared to Allen Lazard's 4 seasons. He blew out that receptions record. And he's been the most productive receiver in college football, or whatever best means. But he's been the most productive receiver in college football or whatever this season. It's on anybody but Xavier. The offensive line is probably culprit number 1. It's been really bad. It's never been a strength on any of Campbell's teams. I don't know why, because that was always a point of emphasis for him, is we're going to try to run the ball, we're going to try to win the trenches, all this stuff, whatever. The offensive line just hasn't been there. Part of it's recruiting, because they, for whatever reason, they have not recruited like the mauler type. Like the way Iowa State plays football, they need the guys that they go in there with a bad attitude. They're trying to like get in fist fights with guys on the lines. Like that's the kind of offensive lineman that Iowa State needs. The way that Matt Campbell wants to play football. And for whatever reason, they just have not done a good job of recruiting that. It also comes down to offensive line coach Jeff Myers, who, when he was hired on, was believed to be kind of a rising star. And that has not panned out at all. The offensive line has regret. Like Darrell Simmons as a freshman was very good. As a junior now, he is, or I think he might be a senior now. I don't fucking know. But he is he's one of the worst offensive linemen I've ever seen. Like he's really bad. Like yesterday they they ran a beautiful play, hit Demetri Stanley in the back of the end zone, holding Darrell Simmons. It's the offensive line is a huge chunk of this problem, and it's just, it takes a long time to build an offensive line. It does. It just, because you have there's so few like quick fixes to an offensive line. They addressed one chunk of it after the 2019 Camping World Bowl when they got their ass kicked by Notre Dame. And part of that reason was they just saw that their strength and conditioning was just nowhere in the same universe as Notre Dame's. Now Notre Dame has their strength and conditioning and their offensive line play is second to absolutely nobody. They always have like the best offensive line in college football because they're unbelievably good at developing that position. But that is something that Iowa State was clearly lagging on. So they fired the strength and conditioning coach. They got a new one, and he's working out. The strength is not the issue. On offensive line, it's technique and it's mentality. That is 100% coached by your offensive line coach. And he is not getting the job done. He is, if staff changes are getting made, which God, they better be making staff changes. However, he better be the first one out the door. Like as soon as the TCU game gets over, like they get off the plane coming back from Fort Worth, you're done. Like that should be I'm leave him on the runway. I don't give a shit. Jeff Myers is young. Like he's like 32 or something like that. Like he may legitimately be a good offensive line coach, and he may be good somewhere else, but he's not good here. And that's the problem. They need to move on, find something different, because that he is not working for the offensive line. The offensive line is poopy. They don't block anybody. The run blocking is embarrassing. The pass blocking is fine sometimes, but the run blocking is not even remotely acceptable. And when you have a bad offensive line, it makes everything else harder. It makes running the ball harder. It makes throwing the ball harder. It makes calling plays harder. I mean, it makes everybody else's job harder when the offensive line sucks. Whatever.
Well, you mentioned you're passionate about it, and I love that. You mentioned the run blocking being a problem. Iowa State's had such a good run of such good running backs. It's not that the running game has been bad this year. It just, you don't have that player.
It's been terrible. Are you kidding me?
It's not. awful, but it's not, you don't have that explosive player. You don't have that game changer. It doesn't feel like. How much of that do you think is talent? How much of that is scheme or ability to execute the scheme?
I do think the next guy in line, Cartavius Norton, he's been playing a bunch the last couple games. He wasn't healthy for the first half of the season. So not only was he not healthy, so he wasn't getting reps, he wasn't getting into it, like, because like Breece Hall's freshman season, he had the ability, he played, like he didn't play right away, but he was able to get some carries early on. He wasn't hurt or anything like that, so he was able to practice and get up to speed. I mean, Cartavius Norton is in like the fourth game of the season. This would be like if the version of Cartavius Norton we have right now is like the one you would get in a normal season, like at the beginning of conference play or whatever. So like he's on like a really delayed development track here in his freshman season. But problem is that's also happening behind an absolute shit offensive line. I do think that Cartavius Norton is gonna be good. I think he's gonna be really good. He needs to work on his pass blocking. He needs to work on his route running, and he needs to work on his hands. As a running back, though, when you give him the football, he's very good. He's fast. He's physical. He's shifty. He does everything you want a runner of the football to do. He's just got to get a lot of the other stuff tuned up, and part of that's just going to come with reps and stuff like that. And he's working through it.
Well,
the problem is that nobody's blocking for him, so that's
that makes it a little more difficult.
It makes it impossible, like, or whatever. And then you got Tom Manning, like, you know, on 2 consecutive drives that got down to the 2-yard line, 2 yards away from the end zone. 2 drives in a row, they spent 4 consecutive plays, so 8 consecutive plays within the 2-yard line, running out of the weak eye formation, running dives out of the weak eye formation, like, and they got stuffed every time. Like, Iowa State's offensive line is total shit. If your offensive line sucks, you do not run out of the I formation. That is day number 1. You don't do that if your offensive line is dog, which ours is, or whatever. You cannot do that, or whatever. Do something. They ran a couple weeks ago in West Virginia. They ran like some speed options out of the shotgun, like NCAA football 14, like run speed options out of the shotgun. Let's do that. They worked. That's fun. Let's do some of that. Hunter Deckers looked kind of comfortable doing that because, you know, he comes from a small high school, so they probably ran some of that whack, whatever. He looked fine doing that. Run some of that. Get him to the edge. I don't know. Do something that's not running directly in the middle of the defense with Eli Sanders, who's like 6 foot, $190 if you put a 35-pound weight in his pants. Like, he's like, you cannot send your tiny little running backs into the middle of the defense on the goal line 8 times in a row without it working. It's fucking stupid. Like, that's a fireable. No, you know what? Well, you know what the fireable offense was? Like, earlier in that drive, the second one that got stuffed at the goal line, earlier in the drive, Iowa State lined up in the I formation on their at the midfield, like I formation, like 1992 or some shit, or whatever. You know who was lined up at running back? Xavier fucking Hutchinson. They lined him up as the running back in an I formation, and you know, and everyone's like, "Oh, there's no way they're gonna get fooled. There's no way. There's something weird happening here." So what they do? They pitched it to him, and he lined up like he was getting ready to throw the ball, like a halfback pass with your number 1 wide receiver, because, you know, we don't need him catching the football or whatever. So he does that, and he's like, "Well, there's nobody open." So he's like, and he's running around like he's running around like someone like stole something from him or whatever. And now then, like, Hunter Deckers is just like sitting over the side, just going, like, just looking like with his idiot look on his face on the other side of the field. And Xavier Hutch just turns around, just whips it at Hunter, and he catches it and like does, or no, actually it might have landed short. I don't even remember. But like, I don't even care. I was so furious at that play. I was like, this is the dumbest shit of all time. Like, nobody can watch this play and be like, this offensive coordinator, he's a genius.
He
knows what he's doing. Like, nobody watched that and came away thinking that Tom Manning was a good offensive coordinator. It was embarrassing to watch in person at the stadium, and I can only imagine what they were like thinking on TV, like what fans of other schools, if they were even watching, were at that point. Like if anybody else besides an Iowa State fan was watching that, like, they'd be like, "Holy shit, Iowa State is terrible," and be like, "Yeah, on offense we are," which is fine because you wouldn't believe it. Our defense looks like the damn 85 Bears most of the time, but you know what? Our offense looks like the 2007 Detroit Lions or whatever.
Well, let's talk a little bit. You mentioned the quarterback, and Hunter Deckers, highly recruited kid, waited his turn behind Brock Purdy. He's thrown for almost 3,000 yards now, which is pretty amazing. He's 18 touchdowns against 13 interceptions. He's been sacked 25 times.
If you told me it was 18, if you told me it was 18 interception, 13,
you would have believed it. Yeah,
I would have believed it. Easily.
So this, and his first real significant experience as the leader of this football team, is he kind of what you expected him to be in consideration of everything he's working against? Is he good enough to be the quarterback next year? Or do you think that Matt Campbell is going to need to look for somebody different to lead this offense in the future?
I would say from a physical gifts and a natural ability standpoint, Hunter Dekkers is as advertised. He's a good runner. Kid's got an absolute rocket launcher for a left arm or whatever. Too many throws with his right. No, I'm just kidding. He's left-handed. But it's got an absolute rocket launcher for a right arm, but he throws with his left. But he he's got he needs to be more accurate. But that was kind of expected. I mean, big arm quarterbacks are almost never as accurate as other guys or whatever. But he's the biggest thing that is not near what I thought it was going to be is the mental side of things. It's running through reads and making good decisions and stuff like that. It's been better. Last week yesterday he was pretty good. Didn't throw an interception and didn't really throw anything that looked like it was going to get intercepted. Like he didn't get away with any of them. Some of them were really inaccurate or whatever, but like in the middle of the season, there were some times where he was making really weird decisions. Like he would have a whole bunch of green space in front of him, and then he would just all of a sudden quick whip like 90 degrees to his left and chuck it out to a running back on the side who's got a guy right in front of him. Just stuff like that. Like he'd make really weird decisions, and he's still growing out of that. As far as going forward, fortunately or unfortunately for Hunter Dekkers, I would say he's bringing in a quarterback named JJ Cole he's from Ankeny, but he is a 0.95 on 247. He's like a mid to high 4-star. And probably if he didn't have like an okay senior year in high school, he would probably be borderline 5-star. He's an exceptionally good quarterback. He can move around a little bit. He is like 6'5" or 6'6". He's really tall. But he's got a huge arm, throws a beautiful ball. Whatever. If his mental game is there, he's probably going to push Hunter for the job. I would be surprised if there isn't at least some sort of QB competition in the offseason between Hunter, JJ Cole, and then the current backup Rocco Becht. I'd be kind of surprised if Rocco came out of that group, but if I kind of hope he does, because having a starting quarterback named Rocco is kind of awesome.
It's pretty cool, yeah.
But actually, he's the son of former St. Louis Rams offensive lineman Anthony Becht. That's his kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's where Becht comes from.
Yeah.
But anyways, well, and JJ Cole is the son of Jamie Cole, who is like the foremost dude on kickers and punters. Like he is, if college football people are going to recruit a kicker or a punter, you talk to Jamie Cole. He's the dude. He was a kicker at Iowa State and lives in Ankeny or whatever, but he's the dude or whatever. And actually, from what I understand is because JJ's a quarterback, obviously, but he actually punts for Ankeny Centennial too, and he actually averaged like 55 or 60 yards a punt. Whatever. So like, if he wants to punt, I don't give a shit. Like whatever, let him do something. Can you imagine the fake punt opportunities available with that guy? But anyways, so I would expect there to be some competition in the fall because Hunter has been in spurts. He's been good, and like he throws a gorgeous deep ball. The 2 deep balls that got dropped by Jalen Noel and Xavier Hutchinson were dimes. I mean, they were exceptionally good throws. And he just needs to work on his short accuracy, and he needs to work on the mental side of that game. He has not done enough this season to guarantee his starting spot next year. I think, he'll be the lead, he'll be the front runner, and he'll have kind of the inside track. But he's far. I don't think he's earned a guaranteed spot for next season.
Well, you talk about next season, and one thing that's a little bit familiar to Iowa State fans is that normally at this time of the year, you start hearing Matt Campbell being brought up for every open job on the face of the planet. And that's not necessarily gone away, but because Iowa State is, sitting at 4-7 and not, not in the place we're used to seeing them this time of year, they're not talking about it quite as much. That being said, do you still see like kind of a 2-part question? Matt Campbell, you still believe that this is a guy that's here for the long haul? Are Iowa State fans okay with a down year because of remembering where they've come from, so to speak? And then what do you expect kind of the mentality of this team going into the last week of the season with theoretically nothing left to play for because of the culture that he's built at Iowa State?
First question, that Matt Campbell's not leaving. He's like, I mean, at this point now, if he left, that'd be dicey because he would be leaving after a really tough season. And that's not a good look. That's an extraordinarily bad look for a guy that's all about the culture and stuff like that. That would be pretty hypocritical. That's why, Matt Campbell's not that guy. He's not leaving. Maybe eventually, but not this season and not anytime soon. And I definitely believe he stole the guy for sure. That said, this season, this offseason is probably going to be an uncomfortable one for him because part of his deal is that Matt Campbell likes his guys. He's got like a bunch of his staff went to Mount Union with him. The Mount Union people, I don't know if people know about this place, but Mount Union is a Division III school. They're a Division III powerhouse.
Absolutely.
They are kind of culty.
Very.
They're exceptionally good at football. They like everybody that Matt Union cranks out football coaches like crazy or whatever. They like Mount Union guys or whatever, and that's okay or whatever. But if someone's not performing and not doing their job, they got to be willing to cut ties. Matt Campbell has cut ties with his guys before. Like I said, they let go of Rudy Wade. His kid is named after the strength and conditioning coach they fired.
Wow.
Or whatever. Like, so I mean, like that's tough. That's really tough to fire that kind of person. So we know he can make those tough calls. But the problem is he's got multiple ones to make. He's got the offensive line coach, Jeff Myers. I think that's, you have to get rid of him no matter what. You can, and I'm a big critic of Tom Manning. I'm not a Tom Manning fan at this point. I know the players like him, generally speaking. But like ever since it's really weird because he was the offensive coordinator and then he left for the Colts to be the tight end coach for the Colts for a year. And that was what resurrected Eric Ebron's career. And he came back from the Colts. And since then he has been an ultra conservative play caller, which looking back, the organization he went to, which was the Colts, is a very conservative play calling organization or whatever. So like he brought that back, which I'm not a fan of. But I mean, if you look at this year, like you can say, well, like they had 422 yards of offense on Saturday and 10 points. So what does that tell you? One, they move the ball pretty well between the sticks, which they did, for the most part. But the situational play calling is where the offensive coordinator makes their money. And situational play calling is really bad. It's like, it's really, really bad. Like 8 straight dives out of some modified I formation on the goal line in the year 2022 in college football. Like we're not doing that anymore or whatever. And especially when your offensive line is really bad, that is a complete lack of recognition of the tools you have available to you to run the offense that you want to run. And so another part of this is they're basically, at least, especially the early season, they're still doing it. Or they're basically trying to run the offense that they ran last year. Well, the problem is you don't have Brock Purdy, you don't have Charlie Kohler, you don't have Chase Allen, you don't have Breece Hall, you don't have any of these guys. And that, like, Brock Purdy still remains wildly underappreciated. Like I know, like he had those very memeable plays once in a while, but he was like, I don't think people really understood like what sort of presence he was for that offense and how he made that whole thing work. Like, yeah, he made some wacky plays, but when they needed a third down, the dude threw a great ball to Charlie Kohler and it worked every damn time or whatever. And he made hay on that. And that's one of the reasons that he's with the 49ers right now. And like Jimmy Garoppolo, if he has a bad game where he gets hurt, Brock Purdy's your starter. And honestly, I know a lot of 49ers fans that watched him in the preseason were like, this kid can play. Because he can. He's a gamer. He's great. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's super likable guy. But anyways, so you have a guy that can conduct that offense like that, like Brock Purdy can, where he's just a mash. He knows every single thing inside and out. He knows every coverage. He knows every read. He knows everything he can change up how to play to make it work. And then you have Charlie Kohler, who's like an automatic first down, touchdown machine. Throw him the ball, he's going to catch it, and it's going to be good. And then you have Breece Hall, who's Breece Hall. who would, if he hadn't blown up his knee a few weeks ago, he'd be the offensive rookie of the year in the NFL, which sucks so much, but he'll be back. But anyways, you don't have all of those guys. You cannot run the same offense that you ran with all of those guys. You have a bunch of good receivers. You have Xavier Hutchinson and Dimitri Stanley and Jalen Noel, a bunch of guys that are good receivers. They can get open, especially like Dimitri Stanley. He can be a burner. Like he can get open deep. And so like we were talking all off season, and Hunter Deckers has a huge arm. He throws a great deep ball, whatever. We were like, this is their chance. They can be a vertical offense here. They can be the fun offense we've always wanted them to be. And what did they do? They ran the same offense. And it's like, yeah, maybe we're a bunch of people that play Madden too much and we try to throw the deep ball too much. But we also know that you cannot run the Brock Purdy, Charlie Kolar, Breece Hall offense with Hunter Deckers, Xavier Hutchinson, and whoever the is healthy at running back. Like that doesn't work or whatever. And Deshaun Hanukkah, which credit to Deshaun Hanukkah at tight end. He's been better. He's been actually pretty good. But he just takes a while. It just took a while for him to get going. And you don't have 2 All-American tight ends to run your offense, put in your offense. But they keep calling 2 and 3 tight end sets. Like, stop it. Stop. You need to take a step back and understand that you don't have the personnel to run this offense. That's on the offensive coordinator to design a system that works for your personnel. If you can't run it, if you don't have 2 good tight ends, stop putting 2 tight ends on the field. It doesn't work. Stop.
So I don't want to cut off this epic rant, but we are already out of time. So
that's fine.
So okay. Not technically anything to play for going on the road last game of the season. TCU obviously has everything to play for, on the verge of potentially being eligible for the football playoffs. How do you see Saturday playing out?
Like I said, it's going to be an absolute show. Nobody's going to have any fun. It will be an absolute nightmarish fest for both teams. Partially because TCU, especially if they don't have the 2 best receivers. I mean, Quentin Johnson for sure. I would say, probably the other one's probably second best receiver or whatever. If you're missing both of those, throwing the ball becomes a lot harder. Max Duggan, the load's going to fall on Max Duggan, as it always does, or whatever. But that's okay, because Max Duggan's a pretty tough dude. He's an Iowa kid, so he's good. He's a tough kid. But yeah, I love Max Duggan. He's great. So a lot of load's going to fall on him. A lot of load's going to fall on that running game. The problem is, I would say it's an exceptionally good run defense. Yeah. They're really good at stopping the run. So it'll be tough sledding for TCU, unless, maybe they find a wrinkle. I don't know, whatever. But it's probably going to be pretty tough sledding. The caveat to all of this, though, is Iowa State's offense is poopy. And it's TCU's defense is pretty solid. But the problem is, we've played nobodies. We made Oklahoma's defense and Oklahoma State's defense, both of which are terrible or whatever. We made both of them look like the 85 Bears or whatever. And because we're so bad, there are times where we've looked competent. West Virginia, the offense looked fine. Texas, the offense looked pretty good. After both of those games, we thought they were going to be, this is a turning point. They can build on this. And they didn't. They absolutely shat down their leg or whatever. So I don't honestly know. I have no expectations for the offense. I assume they're going to put up 10 points. And it's just a matter of whether the defense can hold TCU under 10 or whatever. I genuinely think this is going to be it's the definition of a rock fight type of thing. We play only bad games, and it's just kind of is what it is. And TCU fans are going to hate it. And honestly, I'm just being honest here. It actually might look bad for TCU's playoff resume, even if they win and they look bad against Iowa State. That's 100% possible.
Well, I think TCU's only route to the playoffs is undefeated anyways. So they won't keep a 13-0 team out of the
no. A 13-0 conference champ, Power 5 conference champion, they're going to get in or whatever. But if TCU is at 1 loss right now and they win a shitty game next week and 17-10 and look kind of weird doing it, it would be enough to potentially tip the scale. Hey, or whatever.
They were a 1-loss team in 2014 and beat Iowa State by 52, and that did nothing for them either. So
that's true.
I think you're dead on. I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be low scoring. Nobody's going to have any fun.
It's going to be miserable. We're going to all
and it's the Saturday after a holiday, and the student section won't be full. Yeah, but at the end of the day, TCU fans hope they have enough to get through this one. You just got to survive in advance, and looking ahead to playing another terrible game against either Kansas State or Texas doesn't look fun either. Levi, where can people find you on the internet, find your work?
Wide Right Natty Lies the site, and then at Twitter it's at Wide RT Natty LT. We have got YouTube channel. We've got a Discord server that's got like 800 members in it now. It's
Wow.
a lot of fun. And we've got it's a YouTube channel. We've got Facebook. We've got Instagram. We've got all sorts. I don't know, we're everywhere.
You definitely want to be following the Wide Right Natty Lite Twitter on College Football Saturdays, and you will certainly want to be following them this Saturday because whether or not the game is entertaining,
the live tweeting
always exceptional.
Might be good. I don't know. I haven't been able to live tweet home games because we don't have Wi-Fi in the stadium.
Wi-Fi is terrible.
Garbage. It's horrible.
Yeah. It's a great place. Thank you so much for taking some time to get us ready for the final game of the regular season. TCU will try to continue their revenge tour. They knocked off Baylor at Baylor to make up for 2014. They'll hope that a win over Iowa State this time sends them to the dream season. We are joined by Levi Stevenson, Wide Right Natty Lite. Thank you so much, Levi. Thanks for listening.